Hello and welcome to Good Morning UK. Have your say. A Force for Good's mid-morning show coming to you live from our nerve centre here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. Thank you very much to the folk who are already coming in. TC, good to see you as always, first in on the button, and Frankie as well. Great stuff, Robert. I hope you and the family are well, and good morning to Sandra as well, and always good to see Debbie and Adam. Great that you're in this morning from a sunny England. And Catherine says good morning everyone. Wonderful to see folk coming in and watching. Please do share, folks, if you're on Twitter. Give this a retweet with a positive comment and we'll retweet you to over 26,000 people. Good morning to Louise from Leith and to Alan. Good to see Alan as always in here. Now this morning got a packed programme. Hello Scott and Tommy. Good to see Tommy as well. And Jerry. How's Jerry? Good to see you, Jerry. Packed programme this morning. A lot of things been going on this week. A lot of one or two ridiculous things as well, which we're going to highlight. We're going to be talking about the sporran controversy, where the British government has decided to outsource sporrans to Pakistan instead of buying them from people here that make them in Scotland. Totally absurd. What an own goal. What an absolute unnecessary own goal. But we have to highlight it because it shows the extent to which there's no joined up thinking in the British government. When they talk about hoping to strengthen the union, they get all the easy things wrong. We'll talk about that. Good morning to Stephen and to Alan. Good morning, folks. And Sandra, good to see you. Now, Sandra, you mentioned last week about do we have a star donation system on Facebook. We looked into that, and you can only sign up for that particular program of donations if you are a gaming platform or if you're in some way trying to represent yourself as a gaming platform. Now, we can't speak for any other sites and how they do it, but we're not a gaming platform and we wouldn't want to pretend that we were, so we're not eligible for that star donation system. But thank you for bringing it to our attention, and we did look into it. Yeah, what about this cruise ship that's not allowed to dock in Greenock? What on earth is the story there? What's your thoughts on that? And good morning to Anne from Prestatyn. Good day, Samuel. I hope you're doing well also, and we do hope to get you on here as a guest in the not too distant future, because I know you've got a lot to say and I know you're up for that. So looking forward to interviewing you one of these days, Samuel. And we're also going to be talking this morning about the cancel culture, which is pervading the country, it seems. We are Stephen. We are a platform for truth, honesty, and integrity. The cancel culture thing has been irritating me because I noticed a story. I don't know if any of you have been following it, but some English cricketer. Now, I don't really follow cricket very much, but apparently he's one of their bowlers. And 10 years ago, he made some tweets which are considered quote-unquote racist and sexist, and he's been apologising for them ever since. Now, of course, if you apologise for something, you will unfortunately be apologising for the rest of your life. So it's always best not to apologise. But I suppose if you're a cricketer and your main skill is throwing a ball very fast in a straight line, it's like, well, what else can I do if I don't do this? And I'm getting paid lots of money for it, so I guess I'm just going to have to go along with what they tell me to say and do. So we can put him to the side in a bit because he's under pressure just to go along with the programme that's being pushed upon him, which is to basically apologise for things that he's said and done in the past. So we looked into what it was that he actually said in his tweets, and we'll put the link up there because the Sun newspaper reported it, and it was pretty mild, okay? Pretty mild. Apparently his sexist comment was that he, and I'm just going to read it out so that I don't get it completely wrong, but it was like so mild to be beyond belief that you would even consider it to be offensive in any way. I mean, he said, not going to lie, a lot of girls need to learn the art of class. Okay? That was his sexist tweet. Now, that's just an opinion. Some people might say it's a matter of fact. Anybody who's got a TikTok app and looks on TikTok will very quickly agree with that particular point of view. Many would, certainly. So that's not even sexist. So are you trying to change the definition of what sexist now is? Is it just a man having an opinion on women? So, firstly, that's not a sexist tweet at all. That's just a matter of opinion. So he doesn't need to apologise for that, and it's stupid to apologise for that. And then he did a couple of wee jokes, which are not particularly funny, although one of them's funnier than another. One of them was, he wondered if Asian people, when they did emojis, they made the eyes like two straight lines. Well, it's not particularly funny, but it's not racist, it's not hateful, it's just like silly, a wee silly comment. So we haven't seen anything there that he needs to apologise for. Apparently one of his tweets, which the Sun has not mentioned, used the N-word, but that would be in the manner that young people use it in the street vernacular when they're referring to each other. It wouldn't be in any kind of, I shouldn't imagine it would be in any hostile or aggressive, hateful way at all. In fact, I can almost be certain it's not. So basically nothing to apologise for. But this poor guy has to prostrate himself in front of the world, in front of the dressing room. It says here in the report, he apologised to the dressing room. He had to say sorry to the world. Oh, what a terrible position to be in. I'm afraid, Philo, you're saying sorry to the world for the rest of your life with that attitude. You know, the thing is, never apologise unless you share the same value system as the people who are demanding that you apologise. And in this case, he doesn't share the same value system, because these people are just trying to change our minds. They're trying to actually get us thinking in a different way. And this is all part of this ongoing weird revolution that's happening at the moment, while we're all locked down at the same time. Make no mistake, we are living under revolutionary circumstances right now, and the system is really trying to change the nature of the way we understand reality. And they do it with this cancel culture, and they do it with all this BLM stuff and all this kneeling submission, which is what it is. It's submission. And that's all going on, and it's really malign. Anyway, Debbie, some of the sights of girls in Glasgow on Monday were... Oh, yeah, absolutely. Cancel culture has to stop. TC says the hard left would have this cricketer cancelled for the rest of his life. Yeah. Colin says, good morning. We can never give in to the snowflakes of yesterday. On night shift, Colin. Crikey. Yes, Stephen says, we're all guilty of laughing at comedians' jokes, TV programmes we watch just because they're offensive today in this cancel culture. It's so true. And, you know, hey Linda, good to see you in. Sorry a bit late, but hello from a lovely sunny southeast London. I'm glad things are going on nicely in the weather down there. You know, I get the Daily Telegraph on a fairly regular basis, and Um, they have articles in there against cancel culture, which is good. I'm glad that they do. And they also have articles about the importance of freedom of speech and how it's so important and how it's a great British value and so on, which it is. Well, to what extent are they living by that though? Because they had a journalist called Julie Burchill, who is quite funny. She's quite unusual. She's a little bit eccentric, but she's always funny in a kind of laid back way. And they've sacked her. They sacked her last week because she made a tweet where she said that Harry and Meghan missed an opportunity when they called their new baby girl Lilibet. She said that, if they had wanted to really fit in with the modern times, they should have called the wee girl Georgina Floydina. Okay, the female iteration of George Floyd. Now, I thought that was actually hilarious. Georgina Floydina. I mean, and that's the sort of humour that Julie Burchill comes up with. So, what does the great newspaper that's campaigning against cancel culture do? They sack her. They sack her. Oh yeah, we're against cancel culture, but oh no, you can't say that. You know what I mean? There's no sort of consistency there. No consistency there whatsoever. If you're against cancel culture, live by it and let your columnists tweet ridiculous stuff that some people might not like, but some people find very funny. I wish they would do that. It's clear though that there is an agenda across the mainstream mass media to just go along with this whole thing and not to allow it. Not to allow it. What's this? This is a good one. If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you read the newspaper, you're misinformed. Mark Twain. That's a good point. Somebody asked last week, what's the best newspaper in the UK to read? And my response was, don't read a newspaper as an authority. Don't expect it to be an authority on things. Just read it for information and try to process that information as best as you can in your own way. But once you hold up a newspaper as the oracle, as the thing that tells you how to live your life or how to think, then you're in danger of being misguided by it. So just use a newspaper as an information source. And when you do that, you can read any newspaper and you can look at any newspaper and you can consider it, because you're not hitching your identity to it. But if you hitch your identity to a newspaper, then that newspaper's got you and it will just take you down whatever route it wants to take you down. So just look at newspapers as information sources, not as authorities. Oliver Downs in the house. Good to hear from you, Oliver. Now, I hope I'm not giving away anything when I say that your organisation, UNN, was taken off YouTube. Obviously, because, again, cancel culture, that was last week as well. That was one of the reasons. That's one of the things I was going to just touch on. I'll touch on it now. If you've anything more that you want to say about that or why that was, then just drop that in a comment and I'll read it out. But really, really bad. I mean, we interviewed you a month ago and now they've taken you guys off because I think they're taking all the alternative sources. I mean, there's this real strong governmental push, not just in the United Kingdom, across the Western world, to get everybody vaccinated, and anybody who is even skeptical of that is getting removed off of all the social media platforms. And I know that your organisation was skeptical, not in a very strong way, but just gently skeptical about it, and YouTube's removed you. So what's this saying about what's going on? That's the thing. we're careful about how we even address that issue, of course, because we don't want to get removed, and we've built this up over years and years of our life, so we're careful about what we say as well. But I was really angry to see that UNN had been removed from YouTube. What did Julie say? What did Julie say? I've lost Julie's comment. Oliver says, we certainly were, Alistair. All alternative voices are being called. We ask questions, and that is clearly not allowed. Yeah. I've lost that comment, sorry. We'll maybe try to get you back on again, Ollie, and you can talk about this. We'll speak about that. Well, Susan points out that, if you are being attacked, you're over the target. You don't get any flack unless you're over the target. And that's true, but you've also got to weigh up the extent to which your ability to be heard is going to be compromised. So talking more, we'll get onto the sporting thing in a moment, but I wanted just to talk about the cancel culture thing. I talked about Julie Burchill there. She's been removed by the Telegraph that campaigns against cancel culture because she made a very funny joke, actually, but politically incorrect joke. Poor old Ollie Robinson, the cricketer, has had to prostrate himself to the world for saying nothing in particular that's even controversial in a mild way. And we've got the English football team all kneeling, and Gareth Southgate telling us that we've all got to agree with it. Well, as somebody said on the internet, if the players want to take the knee, if they think that's their free speech, let them. And if people want to boo them for doing that, let the people boo them as well. But don't make everybody else have to conform and agree with what the players are doing to fit into some kind of weird racial submission thing that Gareth Southgate apparently has got going on in his head. Is it a satanic new world order, says Sean. Well, some people think that. Some people do think that. And yeah, somebody mentioned there the University of Edinburgh. Well, if you remember last summer, they took down the name of David Hume, which is one of Scotland's greatest philosophers, one of its greatest minds, because they had discovered in a footnote of an article or book that he had written that he had made what you might call a disparaging comment about blacks in general, which he wouldn't really know very much about anyway, because back in those days, people in Scotland had absolutely no interaction with other ethnic minorities. Anyway, his comment was rather disparaging, so they took the name of it, they took his name down, and there was an academic who tried to defend David Hume's reputation, and then he got attacked, and he in fact got investigated because he actually supported David Hume. However, the good news is academic cleared by university over row in renaming building. And even though this fellow had his reputation damaged as a consequence. And one or two of Scotland's kind of premier historians came up in defence of this academic who had defended David Hume, including Tom Devine and one or two others. And they wrote that, after all, this was a learning opportunity, which indeed it is. And they said, no one is above criticism, and critical engagement with his ideas is entirely appropriate. But we should engage figures like him in the round, not by focusing narrowly on the flaws, as they describe it here. Hume's views on race, which as many have said were common in his day, were nonetheless marginal to his body of ideas. And that's what's so critical. If you've got a man like David Hume, who is known as the father, essentially, of the Scottish Enlightenment, one of the greatest philosophical figures for all his writings and books, but you take literally one sentence that he wrote, and you make that the center of him, you make that everything that's about him, then you're totally misrepresenting that man. But then they go on, no one would object to a public statement such as signage on the building recognising and criticising Hume's what they call racist views. Well, I would object to that. I would object to that because I think it would be absurd. It would be absolutely absurd to say, here's a sign that we've written about David Hume. Look at all his great philosophy, all his really, really good ideas. One of the cleverest men in Scotland, wrote books, father of Scottish Enlightenment, and oh, by the way, this was his opinion on black people. I mean, that's just, do you want to give oxygen to that? You know, that would be an absurd thing to say. An absolutely absurd thing to say. The best thing to do is just remember him for what he's mainly known as, and if people want to research him further, then they're free to do so. And if they come up with all these things that he or others have said which are politically incorrect, you just say, well, you know, be that as it may, deal with that as you want, but don't make that the centre of who he is, because it's not the centre of who he is. You know, there's James VI, the man who invented this great flag. He wrote a book called, which I've got two versions of it, called Demonology, where he was investigating the extent of witchcraft in Scotland, and he seemed, certainly when he was younger, he supported that sort of idea that there were witches around. But that's a kind of marginal thing that you wouldn't make that the centre of who he was. As he became older, he changed views on those sorts of matters. But you wouldn't focus in on that and say that was the centre of who he was, unless you were trying to actually attack him and bring him down. And it's the same with all historical figures. But this is what's going on with this revolutionary moment at this time, is that everybody is subject to an examination of their past. And if there is one tiny little thing in it that's politically incorrect, then they will make that the centre of it, and they will try, therefore, to essentially beshit his memory and destroy that person in that way. And that's how you destroy nations. That's how you destroy nations. And that's what's going on in the Western world at the moment. And we defend ourselves by knowing that's the agenda, knowing that they're trying to find all the little things that in today's world can be used against them, making that the centre of who they are in order to therefore bring them down in everybody's eyes and destroy the nation. And we put this together in an article last year called Stand By Our Ancestors, and we'll put that up in the links. And it's a really good article where I basically just explain to you what the revolutionary purpose of this sort of thing is, and how it's going on. But we have to be wise to it, because this is a revolutionary assault upon not just this country, but generally throughout the Western world, and especially also in America, where they have unfortunately got leaders and a president who is with that anti-American agenda. Okay, what was the name of that book? Gold Eagle Media, Witchcraft in Scotland by J.K. Rowling. Yeah. The cancel culture is run by a very small minority who have been given a voice. The trouble is, young people follow these influencers on social media. Oh, that is so true. And it's so depressing. Like, you see some totally retarded comment, and it's got like 2,500 retweets or something like that. And we put out something that's really intelligent and correct, and it gets like 17 retweets. But we will not let that get us down. But these influencers are very, very powerful. And it is influencers which are used as well by the system to promote any particular idea that they want. That's actually a very good point that's been made in this book called A State of Fear, which I'm working through at the moment, which is about the way that the government in the United Kingdom is using fear in order to manipulate people to follow the lockdown agenda. And she points out, Laura Dodsworth points out, the use of influencers to promote key messages to certain demographics. It's called behavioural science. And if you can find out who are the people, who are the types, the age groups, the ethnicities, the classes even, who need a certain message, you get a key influencer who will appeal to them, and you get them to promote the message to that particular demographic. It's just extremely well structured. All right, that was a joke, yeah. Well, some people think her books are essentially like that, Gold Eagle Media. Margaret says, thank you for sharing the truth. We've got a competition coming up at the top of the hour, and to get to that competition, I'm going to talk about today in British history. Today in British history, today is the 9th of June, and it was on the 9th of June 1842 that Edinburgh-born man James Nasmyth patented the steam hammer. We call him the steam hammer man. And he set in motion, as a consequence of the steam hammer, a new world of construction. And how did that come about? Well, it was because, and Samuel might be interested in this, the chief engineer working on Isambard Kingdom Brunel's ship SS Great Britain wrote to Nasmyth, and he said that he could not find a forge hammer in England or Scotland which was powerful enough to forge the paddle shaft of the engine for the SS Great Britain. And so Nasmyth was tasked with trying to figure out how to do it, and he came up with the idea of a steam hammer, which was a massive piece of equipment. I'll show you a picture of that, which would smash up, or basically hit the metal, the steel, hard enough in order to forge the design that they needed. And he patented the steam hammer on this day, 9th of June 1842, and he demonstrated its precision in Salford by showing that he could use this massive piece of machinery to crack an egg in a wine glass without damaging the wine glass. And in the next demonstration, he let the hammer fall so hard that the whole building shook. Extreme precision technology. Let me bring up a picture of it right now, in fact, because you'll be like, what's a steam hammer? What does that look like? Well, here's one in the Telford Services car park, and that thing in the centre is the hammer which goes down. And for some reason, some idiot has put the information sign right in the middle of it instead of putting it to the side, so that you can't get a proper picture of the actual steam hammer without an information sign sticking in front of it. But you get the idea. That's the steam hammer there. And that changed basically the world. That changed the world of construction. Changed it entirely, because it meant huge things could now be constructed. And he retired at 48, and I like this. He goes, he retired saying, quote, "I have now enough of this world's goods. Let younger men have their chance." What a cool thing to say. I have now enough of this world's goods. Let younger men have their chance. Isn't that wonderful? And he pursued his hobby, which was astronomy and art. And he lived in Kent in a house called Hammerfield. I think anything that's got the word hammer in it is really cool, I think. So we call him the Steam Hammer Man. And he died and was buried in Edinburgh, in Dean Cemetery in Edinburgh. So born and buried in Edinburgh. That was James Nasmyth. And for better or for worse, really, for some people it was for worse. If you were John Henry, it was for worse, because the bad boss came up laughing at John Henry. He said, "You're full of vinegar now, but you're about through. We're gonna get a steam hammer to do your share of driving. Then what's all them muscles gonna do, huh, John Henry? It's gonna take a little bit of vinegar out of you." John Henry said, "I feed 4 little brothers. I've got a baby sister walking on her knees. Did the Lord say that machines ought to take the place of living? And what's a substitute for bread and beans? I ain't seen it. Do engines get rewarded for their steam?" The Legend of John Henry's Hammer by Johnny Cash. A fantastic song. One of my top 10 songs of all time. Check it out on YouTube. It's amazing. So the question, and we'll give the winner at the bottom of the hour. But the question is about what I just said there, and if you've got the answer, please send it into contact@aforceforgood.uk, and the winner will get this amazingly Spitfire tin of luxury mints. That will be winging its way to the first winner of our question. Now, I spoke about the man born on this day who invented the steam hammer, and that was James Nasmyth. And can you tell me what city he was born in and is buried in? That's a fairly straightforward question. This will be winging its way to the first person who can answer that at that address, contact@aforceforgood.uk. Brilliant. And while I'm on the subject of things, physical things, we've been selling one or two of our flags recently. Now this is our 3x2 flag, which is bespoke made. It's got an open hem here where you can put in a pole, and it's got a wee tie. And we always say that every activist should have at least one Union Jack in their repertoire, just to pull out at any time. You never know when you might need a Union Jack. So you can find that, if you would like one, you can find that at our website shop, and we'll put up the link to the website shop there. And if we've got the direct link as well to the Union Jack flag, we'll put that one up as well. Good stuff. Because merchandise does really help us to keep going. Christopher says Johnny Cash is always great, isn't he? Absolutely. I had the honour of seeing him 3 times, twice at the Sands Centre in Carlisle and once in the Royal Albert Hall in London. Christopher says, influencers are one of the most sinister and depressing aspects of modern life, from politics to marketing. That's so. Richard says, Robert the Bruce murdered John Comyn. Henry VIII chopped off his wife's heads. Well, that's for sure. That was a bit sexist, wasn't it? but is part of our history. Leave their statues and our built and public history alone. Absolutely. Absolutely. Aye. Well, somebody wrote in. I just want to quote this person who wrote in last week. I think they were maybe concerned about the extent to which some people in England were perhaps against, were moving against the Scots because of, the SNP's anti-Englishness, which is pretty evident these days. And this person, I won't mention their name, but very kindly said, "I would like to reassure you and your members that despite her, Sturgeon's, blatant anti-English rhetoric, we do not believe that real Scots want to destroy our wonderful United Kingdom or hate the English. But sadly, it seems the Scottish and London media are determined to tear us apart. So I can only give you my best wishes and look forward to visiting Scotland again when the current situation is over." So that was just a wee bit of a reassurance from somebody there, one of our supporters in England, that most English don't dislike the Scots. So that was just good to receive, and just read that out there. And also got another message came in as a consequence of last week as well, which was, "It must be emphasised as often as possible that although the SNP are the largest party when supported by the Greens, the majority of people in Scotland voted for other parties that support staying together and not the SNP. Often you find people in England saying it's for us to fight for the Union and get rid of the SNP, but we are doing that already with the majority voting for the other parties. It's just that our vote is split so many different ways. A lot fail to see this problem, that the Unionist vote is divided between other parties. We keep telling them that. We have to stress that. We have to keep doing our best." Just thought I'd mention that. Good. Well, we've mentioned it again on our programme. So thank you to the person who wrote that message to us as well. And that's definitely worth reading out. And another message that came in to us today was somebody sent us a copy of a letter which they had written to Gordon Brown, because Gordon Brown's back on the scene with his various ideas for what he sees as saving the Union. And this person made several very interesting points in their letter to Gordon Brown. But the one thing that really struck me about this particular letter was they said, as a consequence of the Holyrood Parliament being set up, instead of satisfying the nationalist urge, as was hoped, what it did, it gave hitherto relatively uninterested people in politics a simple, exciting issue to grab hold of: Scotland versus England, which they could understand. And as a consequence, the SNP were able to manipulate that point of view. And that's so true, because so many people are not really that interested in the minutiae of politics and the different ways of looking at the economy or housing or education or even the health service or things like that. They want things just to be very, very simple. And when this Parliament in Edinburgh was set up, it simplified politics, as this person is saying, to a simple matter of Scotland versus England. A matter very easy for the SNP to manipulate to their advantage. So you do get many people today who've got really no interest in politics, but they know that they're Scottish, they know that they like Scotland, and so they're like, "Oh, I'll vote SNP then." And it's quite understandable when viewed from that point of view. And of course, many of us knew that's exactly what would happen when the Parliament was set up in 1997. Anyway, we're Scottish, we're British, we love the United Kingdom, we want to stay together, and if that's you too, then please do give us a follow, give us a share, subscribe to our YouTube page, and let's get this positive message out there, because there are so many people here in Scotland who love the United Kingdom and who want us to stay together. And the politics of the day limits the impact that we can make, as that letter writer said, because our vote is split several ways, but deep down we still love the United Kingdom and we want to stay together. And groups like ourselves really are pushing that fact into public consciousness, so that people know about it, and know that there are people here in Scotland who love the United Kingdom and want us to stay together. And that's the best that we can do at this moment. And we have to also hope and pray for our politicians, our Unionist politicians, that they can also convey these positive vibes also. Adam asks an interesting question. How come Wales and Northern Ireland are happy with their powers and not Scotland? My only guess is because Wales and Northern Ireland are Unionist and Scotland is the only nation that is served by a nationalist government. That's an interesting point. That's an interesting point. Michael Taylor says, as an Ulster loyalist, I hope the good people of Scotland kick the SNP into touch. There's a programme on BBC at the moment, or rather there was a two-part programme called The Road to Partition, and you can view it on YouTube and on iPlayer. And I watched the first episode a couple of nights ago, and I thought it was fairly fair and interesting, and have yet to watch the second one. But that's for those of you who maybe don't understand entirely what's going on in Northern Ireland. The Road to Partition is quite a good programme. I didn't see anything that struck me as obviously biased one way or the other. I don't know if you've seen that, Michael, if you've got your thoughts on that particular programme. And Robert says, why isn't it a UK vote as going to affect the other nations? Why should it be only Scotland? It's not right. It has to be a UK vote for so-called Indy. Well, we've always said that the rest of the United Kingdom is involved. It's not just a matter for Scotland alone. It's not just a matter for Scotland. It's a matter for everybody who believes in the United Kingdom and who believes that the United Kingdom is a good thing and should continue, because this is their country too, and it's not for Scotland to break that up. We're very strong on that, and we constantly push out that message that it's, if you're British or if you support the United Kingdom in any way, you are involved. Now, I was going to talk, and I'm going to talk right now about the Great Sporran controversy. Now, last week I spoke about how we are trying to produce a magazine called a Special Policy Edition, which is going to recommend lots of different policies for the British government to follow if they wanted to help strengthen the United Kingdom. Some of them unusual, some of them quirky, some of them probably not really possible, but we're going to suggest all these policies anyway. However, one thing that we don't want is for the British government to deliberately get all the easy things wrong, and goodness me, did they do it this week. Now, it's one of these, it seems like a minor issue, but in fact it tells us so much about the attitude of the government. And what it is there's a Sporran contract, right, for the Royal Regiment of Scotland. And they have to, I don't know how often, but they have to renew their sporrans and they have to buy them from somewhere. And you would think, well, they'll buy them from a sporran maker in Scotland because that would be the obvious thing. And if they do that, then they can do a nice little press release saying we have bought X number of sporrans from sporran associated makers in wherever in Scotland. And people go, oh, that's nice, just shows the benefits of the union at the same time as helping to preserve an endangered craft, at the same time as giving a little good story there about the British Army and about the Scots and the British Army and so on. So a nice wee thing just to help strengthen the union, buy the sporrans from a local sporran maker in Scotland. And there's only, of course, one or two of them around. But no, what the Ministry of Defence has to do, it has to look at the bottom lines. How much is this going to cost? Oh, can we get it cheaper off Amazon? Have you checked on eBay? Or here's a sporran manufacturer in Pakistan, okay, where they're going to buy the sporrans from because it's cheaper. Now, was somebody posted on the Facebook page last night? I mean, how much of a saving here are we talking about? I mean, last time I looked, I don't think a sporran is like an Exocet missile or something like that. It's probably not that much of a saving. It's probably only like a few £100 or maybe a few £1,000. It's not going to be a massive saving. And you would think that that it was such an easy choice to make, is buy the sporrans from Scotland. But no, they get it completely wrong. They get a complete own goal. And of course, the Scottish national newspaper is up in arms, quite rightly, about this. Scottish sporrans no more as MOD decides to import from abroad. So this was the article that alerted me on Sunday, the 6th. And so I was so just astonished at this behaviour that we wrote an open letter to Ben Wallace, who is the Defence Secretary, and we published that on Monday, and we put it out on our Facebook, on our Twitter, and on our Instagram, and we also put it out on our website last night, and we'll put the link up there to that for everybody to read. And we sent this also hard copy to Ben Wallace, and if we get a reply, we'll most certainly tell you. But the point that we made here is this contract could have helped to boost a small traditional craft and preserve endangered skills. Esteem the British Army in Scotland and demonstrate in a colourful and quirky way the ongoing value of the Union. Instead, it has ended up as an incredible own goal. It has demonstrated that there is precious little joined up thinking when it comes to the government's desire to support the Union. We suggest that the MOD needs a change in culture. Instead of obsessing with the economics of the matter, the primary consideration should be political. Will this help or hurt the Union of the United Kingdom is the question. That's not a difficult question. The British government needs to stop getting the easy things so drastically wrong. Indeed, it demonstrates there is so precious little joined up thinking when it comes to the British government trying to strengthen the Union, getting all the easy things wrong. Alan says they will blame cost, but if they bought from here in bulk and the sporran makers had a steady business contract, they would probably lower the costs and would keep the skills to make them in Scotland. That's correct. And what would also happen is the British government money would stay in Scotland. And however much it cost, that money would come to Scotland, it would stay in Scotland, it would circulate in Scotland, it would help to raise the overall wealth of Scotland. Instead, what happens is that money, that British government money, leaves the country. It leaves the country, never to be seen again. And that's a massive loss in itself, which is very often not weighed into these calculations. But you're right, they'll always blame the cost, but sometimes politics has to triumph over economics, regardless of what the cost is, especially if you're trying to save the country. And there's lots of, one of the arguments that people like myself used to use to leave the European Union was that we could procure public services and products in Scotland. If we had a government contract, we could just open it to British suppliers. Under EU rules, we had to open it to the world. And you would say to the government, why don't you buy local food for the regiment, in Edinburgh from the local surrounding area instead of from, abroad? And it'd be like, oh, it's procurement policies. It's the EU. We've got to do it because of the EU procurement policies. Well, now that we're out of the EU, we no longer have that excuse. So now that we're out of the EU, if the British government chooses, it can choose to have its own specific procurement policies to procure local and British. It no longer needs that excuse that it's following EU laws. So that's a very valuable element of Brexit, and so it should be taken advantage of. But what we're seeing right now with the Sporran contract is they're not taking advantage of that benefit of Brexit. Again, no joined up thinking there at all. Well, hopefully they'll start to think about it. They certainly won't think about it unless people like ourselves point it out to them. So that's a value that we are doing. Now, as Christopher says, it must be one of the crassest procurement decisions ever, and made even worse by picking on a totemic item. That's the phrase, isn't it? Totemic. Absolutely. A totemic item like that. And that's does that not even occur to them? Oh, because this is a totemic item, we should tread carefully on this one. No, it doesn't occur to them. Oh my. And of course, how would we survive in a war since we make nothing here? That's absolutely right. Self-sufficiency should be a national goal, an aspiration, even if it's not something that's necessarily possible. Self-sufficiency should always be an aspiration, whether that's for energy or for food or for manufacture even. Last week I mentioned that we've got a campaign running to find 50 new union supporters. Now, these are people who help us each month with a small donation, usually of a £5 or so. We decided this year that we didn't want to do a crowdfunder because of the lockdown and all that sort of stuff, but we thought what we would do in the summer is we would try to really boost our monthly supporters, and we want 50 new monthly supporters by the end of the year. Now, we started this program 2 weeks ago, and last week we had 7 new supporters. This week, since last week, we've picked up an additional 3, so we've now got 10 of the 50 union supporters that we are seeking to find. So we need to find 40 more union supporters, and we'll keep pushing this each week until we've got those numbers, because we do need those numbers to come in order to generate the income stream which will allow us to publish our special policy magazine edition, which is going to be at least 36 pages, and of course we're going to need full colour, glossy, so we're going to need quite a bit of cash to push that out and get enough copies published. So we're going to need 50 new union supporters. So we'll put the link up there for monthly union supporters. If you can donate, well, £5 a month works out at £1.15 a week. If you can donate that, we'd be so grateful, and you'll be eligible to get our Union Heart magazine plus all back issues. You'll also be eligible to get, if you request it, a free copy of our 36-page policy magazine. You will also be eligible, if you request it, to get a wee badge as well, a wee badge that says A Force for Good in it, and one or two other little perks as well for our union supporters. So please do, if you can, become a union supporter. Very valuable. If you would rather donate in other ways, then we've got merchandise. Our wee book is something that we always punt out, and it's only a £5, including postage, throughout the United Kingdom. And if you can, if you need one of these, you know where to get it. We'll put the link up for the wee book for the union as well. Definite bestseller. Something, we sell several of these each week. You can read it in an hour, and it will really fill you in with a lot of good information about the United Kingdom and how the union came together, and give you some good arguments that you can use as well, just to keep the British end up, as we always like to say. Here's Guy's got a good comment. Thank you, Guy. Being a union supporter is less than the cost of 2 Costas and well worth it. Fantastic. Thanks for your support, Guy. Wonderful, Christopher. Thank you. Thank you. Christopher says, I'm on a recruitment drive for AFFG and actively asking people. Thank you. Thank you for that. People are more likely to support something if they're recommended to do it by somebody that they know. So that's very helpful, Christopher. Thank you. Adam says June 23rd is coming up. That was the Brexit date back in 2016, wasn't it? Thanks for reminding us of that. Guy says there that there's I didn't know this, shows how much I follow it, but Scotland versus England in the Euros, 18th of June. Okay, well, we'll look out for that. We'll look out for that. Well, this Gold Eagle Media's got an interesting angle. MOD contracts are difficult to get. They're all about kickbacks. I used to manufacture epaulettes, goodness me, and we were cheaper than importing from China, but never got a contract. You'd think they could make British Army uniforms. You'd think that could be like, we're going to make the British Army uniforms in Britain. You'd think that would be just a given. I mean, the fact that it's not surprises me. British government, it's just a joke sometimes. Yeah, goodness sake. Jonathan says Scotland's probably less likely to take the knee than England. It's going to be interesting to see, isn't it? Isn't it? Here in Scotland, we've got a large number of people, because Scotland's kind of split between nationalists and unionists. There's a large number of people who will just follow whatever people like Nicola Sturgeon tell them to do. Hopefully she'll keep out of it. Hopefully she'll keep out of it. Well, folks, that looks like an hour's gone already. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. The who's won the prize. Boom 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 boom. Yes, the question that I asked was for this. I said, in which city was James Nasmyth born in. He patented the steam hammer on this day. And we do have a winner. And let me put up the winner here. The winner who came up with the correct answer being Edinburgh, where he was born and where he is also buried in Dean Cemetery, was Debbie Beer. Well done, Debbie. Congratulations to you. You will be the proud recipient of this Spitfire tin of luxury mints winging its way to you later this afternoon. Good stuff. Thank you very much. Hope you and Stephen enjoy them. That would be brilliant. Congratulations, says Frankie. Well done, Debbie. Ross says congrats. Alan, you just missed out, I'm afraid. You just missed out by a nanosecond. Stephen, well done, the wifey. Adam says congratulations. Debbie says, woohoo, been watching that tin for ages. Good, we certainly will enjoy them. Great stuff. Well, thank you, Debbie, for all your engagement in the programme. Wonderful. And Robert, sorry that you missed out as well. Sorry that you missed out. And Catherine says, congratulations, Debbie. Folks, it's been a blast. Thank you very much. An hour's gone very quickly. We've run over by 2 or 3 minutes. But that's what you do when you're having fun and when we've got such a great crowd of people with us. Sandra says, well done, Debbie. Good stuff. I do enjoy doing these shows. I hope you enjoy watching. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. And so it just remains for me to say, people do have a wonderful week. Please join in next week. It just remains for me to say, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the Queen. See you again.